so that was to say thanks for bearing with us. For those who arrived late. So John Dyer is my name. I was fishing game for 36 years. Retired a couple of years ago, turned 65. Actually, when I first started, it was the Auckland Acclimatisation Society, and then there was a legislative review, and we turned to fishing game councils, and virtually all the same councils came back, but with a different name. So appreciate when New Zealand was settled, the settlers were somewhat concerned that there wasn't enough of the foods they're used to, so they started introducing salmon, for instance. They're very passionate about trying to get salmon to give them a change of diet, and various other things, venison and so on. Actually, I think some of the first venison that arrived on a ship in New Zealand was promptly sent off to one of the clubs and eaten before it was released. So let me just see if this works. Oh, there we go. You might notice there's Model T, but here it actually looks like they've said let the horse go graze while they're busy catching all these fish. That was out in Waikato. They introduced trout to a lot of the different lakes. 1884 thereabouts, they started introducing them to places like Rotorua. About 1901, there was really brown trout in Taupo, but they talked about introducing rainbow trout, and they said, "Oh, nobody ever goes there. Why would you bother doing that?" So anyway, a chap called Sir Cecil Whitney, well, he became late at night at Sir Cecil Whitney. He said, I'll pay for the truck to take them there. So that's how rainbow trout got into Lake Taupo. And there's one of them from the Taupo River. So fishing game administer a number of things, one being freshwater fish. I'll explain which one shortly, but this has come from Rotorua. I think it's the third truck. I think it's the original tank, but it's the third truck underneath it. It's worn out 3 tanks. It's been growing all over the place, releasing. In this case, let's see if the next releasing brook char, which is a type of trout, or sort of related to trout, releasing them and some brown trout, some rainbow trout into Lake Pupuki. Lake Pupuki has no natural streams to put trout to recruit, so they have to bring a truck in. And we, through Facebook and various other things, we let the community know. All the kids turn up, and here's Adam Daniel, the fisheries officer, and the kids, you can just see the trout coming out of the net there. The kids help us release the trout into the lake, and then later on they give them free licenses. They come back to see if they can catch them the following week. Probably the best fly you can use is a trout pellet from the hatchery. Hatcheries down the Rotorua. So that's one of the things we administer is freshwater fish, and another one, so that was trout, also salmon we do. Another one is perch. It's an introduced fish from England. We didn't particularly want them introduced. Well, put it this way, some are introduced in a very limited way. For instance, where the Chelsea Sugar Works is, there's some in the pond there. There was some down Whanganui and one or two other places. But a gentleman who, so we're talking about sort of 1880s or 1890s or something. But somebody who, actually I'll tell you a story about that. They were introduced into, I think it was Tasmania, and there was a flood, and the dam that they were in burst, and they managed to find 7 of them walking down the river. They found them in various little places, and so the New Zealand ones are all descended from those. And anyway, there's a gentleman who was very much into coarse fish who released things everywhere without any authority and without any permission. In fact, my neighbour's pond, they said they saw him get into his truck. He saw him, and he got in his truck, and he sort of sprayed metal all the way back up the drive to get the heck out of it before someone said, "What are you doing with those bloody fish?" You know? We prosecuted him. And actually, one of the first vehicles I drove was the larder Neva we confiscated off Mr. Smith. So I had that for a while. Koi carp, we don't administrate those, although the chap you saw, the fisheries officer, he's called Carpy because he did his PhD. Oh, is it PhD? It might be an MSc. No, I think it's a doctor actually. Anyway, he did it on carp. And it's one way of getting rid of them. They're very determined to go to freshwater sources to breed. So if you've got freshwater grain coming into a lake, there was about 40 of them all trying to get into there. And I think the next picture, you can see how many there are trying to get past this carp barrier to get into Lake Rotorua. That's by the Wairunga Road. So yeah, they were made to paint those things. they were released in a dam down near Oklahoma, I think it was, and there was a flood. I might have been 2 dams. There was a flood, and it just burst them into the Waikato system. Waikato's connected to Waikato at Nawahia. So basically, the entire catchment has got koi carpet now. But you can also, if you go out to the Wairau River at Cleveland, you'll find them out there. Don't ask me how they transfer across. Part of the problem is people use grass carp to clean the grass out of their drains and ponds and things. And some people think koi carp, grass carp, it's all the same. I'll take a bucket of these home and let them go. Yeah, hopefully they're caught onto that by now. Swans, black swans, believe it or not, we administrate those too. I've actually got a paper in preparation about how they came to New Zealand. Wasn't by their own steam. There's nothing to support that theory, including all the banding data we've got since. Well, there you go. There's some banding data. In this case, it says Great Wildlife, Wellington, New Zealand, and there's the number. That one's on. I think we banded that at bird care or bird care. What was it called? Bird care at Road. And anyway, subsequently turned up at Western Springs. People go, oh, it's going to ban, it's going to ban. So managed to catch it. We found it at travel 10 kilometres. That's not how we caught it. That was the film Hot Fuzz. But here we are recreating it out there.
Is that a real being?
The real
Being.
being.
No, being.
Oh, being. Oh, yes. Yeah, he works for bird control out of Auckland Airport. And they were trying to catch them, ban them. This is at Ambury Park out near the Pukitutu Island. This is the wastewater treatment plant out there. And there's quite a few nesting at Ambury Park. We were trying to ban them, and let me just see if we've got some more photos. We also catch them in the molting. You probably know as waterfowl, they go through what they call a catastrophic molt. So basically, they drop all their flight feathers all at once. They can't fly for 2-3 weeks while they regrow them. You can categorise them. I don't know when that disappeared, but anyway, it says, I think it's here stage 2 or something or other. You can, so when they're molting, you can see what else. In this instance, we've attached a radio transmitter and a red neck band. We gave up on the red neck band because people kept saying, oh, the bird out there, you know, the treatment on, it's got a red thing caught around its neck. Yeah, that's what we put it on yesterday. So the way they catch them when they can't fly is you chase them in a boat, catch them with a swan hook, string them to the back, immediately kill the motor and bring them on board, pop the band on them. Nobody told me what size the swan hook was, so through trial and error we found out what it needed to be. I was watching a program on British Wildlife just the other day, and they had 3 swan hooks in a net all attached in the wall where they were, capturing birds that had been injured and so on, bring them back to treat them. So if I'd known that, I could have written to them and just said, but what is this dimension here? I have had occasion to catch a mute swan. I was in England. There was one that was caught in a storm. It was on a bridge, and I could see in the snow it had been up and down this bridge and up and down this bridge. So I caught this thing, and boy, their wings, you can see how it could break a little kiddie's arm. I took it down to the water and let it go. Better than where it was. It was going to get hit by cars. Scorp, they were game birds until about 1930. They've been protected ever since. Nothing much happened with them, but just in the last few years, they seem to be expanding quite considerably. Good populations as well around our district. And originally there was quite a lot in Western Springs. The zoo had surplus stock they put in Western Springs, and they would all die off from botulism. One year there was only one left, and he hung around with a black swan because he was a black scorp, he was a male. Black swan, black scorp, same thing. And whenever actually the swan was very attached to him, whenever the scorp dived for food, the swan was like, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Anyway, they've let a few more go, and now the shoveler. One of the things New Zealand does, or New Zealand Fishing Game does, is every year in August, early August, we count the shoveler right around New Zealand. It's not an exhaustive count. We count certain places each year where they're common, and the idea being that we can see the trend up or down. Are they if it's relatively steady year after year, then you're reasonably certain that the whole population is likely to be steady as well. Now, one of the things we do, I don't know if you, there's no ban on this one, but there was a dog called Meg, a chap called Roger Sutton. He wrote a book, I forget the name of the book, Wild Places or something like that. Anyway, he banded a significant number using this extremely soft-mouthed dog, Meg, so you could catch them and release them unharmed, ban them, let them go unharmed. My own dog, a Labrador, who would pick up little chicks, and Dad would be digging a drain or something on the farm, and he'd drop the little chick there, and the chick would go. I haven't tried them as an egg, but some dogs can do that.
Is that a shovelers?
The shovel, yeah. Oh. That's the one. Yeah, they've got a very long bill, like called spoonbill, or not to be confused with royal spoonbill.
Female, it looks like a female.
Yes, very likely. Or a young male that hasn't got his colours yet, perhaps. So a number of ways we catch them. One is we put a pike net across the stream where you know there are some. You go away completely. When you try and drive them, it doesn't work. They'll come back, hit this, go up to the top, try and get around it, and drop into the capture part of the pike net. So you come back sort of 5-6 hours later, and there they are, bands on with the old enough and go again. They were also banding in a place behind Lake Wangapay, and the Wildlife Service and Acclimatisation Society, including my predecessor Frank Thompson, it was the largest catch of shoveler in the world, actually. Since then, that area, I took one of the people who was involved in it. He said it was unrecognisable. It's been completely overgrown by willows. The sedges have been done away with. Large amount of alligator weed in there, which I can't get regional councils to do anything about. But anyway, but that allowed people to work out, you know, how long do they live? Do males live longer than females? How far do they travel? And they do travel extensively around the country. You could ban this one in Otago, and 3 months later it might be up in Mangere. I had to count shoveler 1 year, and we had a flood. And I thought, oh, boat on the back. So I took some of these cones apart, got the boat in there, zoomed up to where I needed to count, came back, put the boat back on. I figured no one else needs to get past me. They're not going to get down there. It was out of Churchill near Tikawata. Did the job. Really cartridge, we introduced those. We actually had to build a quarantine station at Massey University's poultry unit to bring them in. We had to make sure they were genetically pure. We had to, there's only certain breeding places that had them of sufficient purity. And actually I met the guy who did it. I came out to New Zealand like 20 years later to see them. They never really caught on in the wild, but we've since got shooting preserves where people who were trained in England to do these sorts of things have released them there, and they're doing quite successfully there. So they're not extinct in New Zealand. If you go around where the lighthouse is at Auckland, good chance you might see some around there. I've seen them elsewhere near around Bombay. I don't know if they still release them around there. And I've raised them myself, and actually they used to roost on my roof, which, given all the cats in the district, was a very smart place to be, you know.
Is that the same as Chapel?
Very similar. Let me see if I can get. So Chakor, a bigger bird, pretty much identical, except instead of being spotted, it's more of a band rather than a speckled. It's a solid band rather than a speckled band. And Chakor lived down, ironically they came through Auckland, they were released around Taumarunui and places like that. They never really caught on, but they did thrive in the South Island. The only problem being that they hit the rabbits with phosphorized pollen and things like that, and it just knocks the poor old Chakor sick. These are some of the ones I've raised in my backyard. Let me just try this pointer. We can sort of see there. The mother bantam has got some of this egg mixture in her mouth, and she's making a special little noise like, come on over here, eat some of this stuff, you know. Pebbles in the water to make sure they don't fall in and drown. And something I found in German books is if you add chopped up yarrow, the white or pink but not yellow, if you chop it up very, very fine and you push the egg yolk through a sieve, the yarrow, if you give them that for the first 3 or 4 days in life, they have such a zest to eat. The yarrow actually is an appetite stimulant. And Auckland Zoo had a kiwi, and I was busy doing something there, and they said, "Oh, would you like to pet a kiwi?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't I?" They said, "Unfortunately, that particular one's going to die." And I said, wouldn't eat. And I said, "You realise there's this huge huge yarrow bush just growing right by the door. Do you think that perhaps one of the old keepers knew something that you didn't? Perhaps you should give it a bit of this. What have you got to lose?" So anyway, I don't know. Didn't sound good. Oh well, they didn't want to try that because it wasn't in their book of things that they're supposed to do. A good friend of mine, I don't know if any of you know Sim Gibb, who ran Aqualand up at Waikato. No, he used to, people bring him kiwis that have been hit by cars or caught by big dogs or that type of thing. And the Wildlife Service insisted he had to keep sending them to the Kiwi House at Auckland Zoo. And within a few months, every one of them was dead at that time. They were still struggling to figure out how to raise kiwis. Why they didn't say to Sim, "We'll pay for you to come down to Auckland, we're going to put you up, we're going to feed you, look after you, but tell us what to do." And in the end, he got a letter from the head of the Wildlife Service saying, "Anyone else tries to take any of your kiwis off you, they have to ask me first." So eventually got, but he sort of disheartened by it. Pukekos, the villains of the world. I just read somewhere from somebody who would probably know. Rudy Hoges, who was in the Wildlife Service, he thinks pukekos eat bitten eggs. So, have a little think about it if you're going to release them. Maybe not with a bit. Anyway, you don't want to see gory shooting photos, but they are game birds. They can be shot. It is legal. A lot of people go, "They're protected, surely they're native birds." Well, no, they're not. And what happened in the 1920s or 30s was Frostbird wanted to protect them, or the equivalent of Frostbird in those days, wanted to protect them completely, and the farmers wanted them exterminated. And so they found a happy middle ground, which was they made them a game bird. You could only shoot them for so many weeks of the year. You had a bag limit to make sure that you didn't take too many, and for that matter, too few. And some people eat them. They make a very good sort of soup and so on. Fishing game in this region, there's 12 fishing game regions around the country. We've got about 2,000 hectares of wetland. I forget how many titles, I think 15 or something or other. Two of them have got shag colonies, 5 shags like this one. And actually, they're croaking and carrying on all year round practically, not just in green season. Canada geese, you can see these ones holding their head down, there's their chicks. That's not too far from where the shags were. Lake Hakanawa, they tried to put out some plywood copies of dingoes to scare them away, which didn't work terribly well. Might have worked for a day. When we managed Canada geese as game birds, they were originally given to us by President Theodore Roosevelt. Actually, what happened was people used live Canada geese in those days as decoys to attract wild birds. So these ones would honk at them. They were tethered usually, so they couldn't take off. Occasionally, they had called Judas geese, which would actually fly up, get their mates, bring them back down, and then people would shoot them, hopefully not shoot the Judas geese. But anyway, that was all made illegal about 1916 or something like that. But people liked them as pets by then, and so the little old Midwest towns where the goose flock used to just walk around town and go. And anyway, when they wanted to introduce them to New Zealand, people said, "Well, just take some of those. Take some of these over this village," and so that's how they came here. When the farmers were complaining about them, our population in the Waikato was about 2,000. We got it down to 400. And then they were actually complaining that we're taking too many. That they said, "We don't want you to get rid of them, we just want you to control them, Anyway, because of their agitation, the boffins down in Wellington took all protection off them, and now the numbers, just every year, they're just going up and up and up and up, creating all sorts of problems on water reservoirs and out at airports especially. Just been a complete disaster since the full status was taken off. Pheasants, we administrate those too, obviously introduced from England primarily to New Zealand. We've got about blackneck, ringneck. Actually, they were introduced even before the acclimatisation. Established one guy up in Whangarei, Mr. Walton, about 1843, I think it was. He brought in pheasants plus a gamekeeper to look after them. Pretty well heeled in those days. He also, and I mean that was a success, but he also brought in a little packet of gorse seeds and 6 pair of rabbits. Made sense at the time, and we thought they would do well. Yeah, they did really well. Bobwhite quail is one that I raised, band on. That actually became a duck stamp. You might see a picture of one of those later on. We tried introducing those for the last 100 years or something. They're lovely little birds that don't cause any harm. Brown quail, they were introduced from Australia. Those ones were up near Wellsford, actually up near Tihana. Near Silver Hill Road. Silver Hill Road. I was going to say Silver Lake. Silver Hill Road.
And they're the ones on tourism.
Yes, they're doing rather well on some of these islands. Yeah, indeed. So they were introduced, of course, and California quail. We bought some of those up. There was a person in one of the bays, and he had them in a cage, and there was a storm, and they all got out as a consequence. And he reckons it colonised all of New Zealand from there. I think that's a little bit exaggerated, but it's sort of true. Now, Prof. James Russell and I built the trap. He's going to try and catch them and see if he can ban them, just to find out the usual things, how long they live, how far they travel. There's been thousands and thousands banded in the past, but that knowledge has kind of died out. Fortunately, we've still got some of the written information they left in the archives in New Zealand. So we're basically trying to reinvent the wheel. Every year I had to, twice a year, fly over Raglan here and Carfair Harbours, count all the swans, count all the Canada geese, and then the next day or whenever, usually even that afternoon so far. Oh, that's right, we did that afternoon we'd have to do the Waikato lakes, so we do every lake in the Waikato, every major lake, counting geese and swans, and then the next time the weather was suitable, we would do all the king country ponds to check the paradise shelduck populations. It has to be a plane with a wing above so that we can look down, and you can see all the geese. It's like road and arrow. There'll be more. There'll be twice as many by now. The good old days. The hunter's bag was grey duck, and some of these over here brown teal. They used to be much more common up until about 1910, 1920s. People think a virus went through them. It's got nothing to do with wetland drainage. Okay, it was a virus. If you're trying to tell the difference between mallards and greys, the greys got the one stripe, smaller stripe, mallards got 2. People will tell you the mallard is hybridising with the grey. It's actually the other way around. The randy grey male is getting around, okay? But the consequence is the same. The genes are so interfused that when you look at it from a genetic point of view, even when you get one that looks for all the world like it would be a grey, if you looked at it genetically under a microscope, you'd find it be mallard genes and vice versa. Unfortunately, this is out of Auckland Airport, as you might guess. We were catching swans. I think I showed you earlier on, we were putting on neck collars at one point. Also, we had tracking devices we put on the harness like the backpack. Now we put one on the neck. And they do some tremendous, you can see that one's gone from, looks like Christchurch up to the very far north. There's some tremendous journeys. None of them have ever travelled far enough to support the idea that they'd be flying from Australia, even within Australia. None of them ever, like it's about 2,000 kilometres between New Zealand and Australia. We've never seen one travel that far. We've never found one, even though they've banded thousands and thousands in Australia and many, a couple of 100,000 in New Zealand. They've never seen a cross Tasman journey.
How would you recover swans out in the open ocean?
Eh?
The dots out in the open ocean, how do you recover those?
Good question. Don't know. I didn't set up the same. They may, I don't know. It means I don't. Well, at one stage there, they took they had the New Zealand swan on the Chatham Islands, and some of the early settlers went there. Said the middens where the Maoris had been cooking were absolutely full of swan bones, and they're completely wiped out. And then they introduced a handful of Captain Hood. Allegedly took over 6 pair or something like that, and then the numbers just went wild. It went like there was, 30, 40, 50,000 swan on Chatham Islands. But for a while there was absolutely none. And again, if they colonise, why not? So yeah, these could be off. I don't think there's that many offshore islands to support them.
It'll be boats that they're landing on, will be putting them in the net, like bycatch.
A good idea, but I suspect not.
Oh.
But yeah, it's a good explanation. When we catch them, they have a cunning little thing where you wrap it over this way and this way and this way and so on. It stops them getting up, flying off while you're waiting to ban them. I've also found onion bags do reasonably well, and they seem quite content once you pull the little thing up. They just sit in the back of the car and take them wherever you need to take them to safety. Bittens. Now, it's called bow terrace, isn't it? And if you know your star signs, you know that terrace is the bull. And anyway, I thought, what a load of rubbish. I just read this, and I was down at the Dean Block, which is one of our wetlands near Pocono, and I heard this bull, and I don't know if he'd been eating something he shouldn't have been eating, some ragwort or something like that. He was going, woo, woo, woo. And I thought, God, he sounds like a bittern, you know. I thought, actually, yeah. We had some dock staff who were catching them, putting radio transmitters on them, banning them, and so on. They put a mirror out, and the bittern sees himself in the mirror, and he thinks it's a competitor. So it's into that cage. What happened? This is on my friend Alan's place, hiding amongst the I think it was a extra dry year, which might be why I can't remember where he was. Apparently, well, I've seen this when I'm doing this. When you drive past the car, they're like that. They're also going like this as they're watching you go past, you know. And if it's blowing a bit of a gale, and I go, hang on, everything around me is shaking. I better. So they'll do a bit of shaking too, you know. And allegedly, and this has been now the first person that came out, he probably read all this. The first person who saw this, he reckoned they were fishing, and they said, "What do you mean?" And well, they pick up a little piece of leaf and they drop it in the water, and there's a slight current, and there's a slight current down. The little fish are coming up to eat it, and they're going, "You ever drink before you saw this?" You know, well, only one or two, you know. But I've actually seen it. If you go on YouTube, you can actually see them doing it. It's like he might have had a drink or two, but what he saw, he saw. Are those bitten or battle? You don't know. Or?
Yep, I know.
I've found a few ones that have been forgotten.
Oh.
Back to.
Forget them my way.
Yeah.
That's sound report.
Yeah, so those are the AR4s, the dock designed recording devices for bats or bitten or whatever you want to record. Yeah, so they've got a
Could have been
little
either.
chip in there that you can program to which bandwidth and what time you want to record them for.
You can still get them for dock
Yes.
updates. There's no doubt for making them for AR5s
Yes.
instead of AR4s.
And they're even more expensive.
That one was down Hood's Landing, and if you didn't remember, you put it there, you'd never see it again. But I just got this. I was looking for a pond, and I came across it. Yeah, one of the things we do is you get a receiver, and you can actually hear the bats when they're flying along looking for insects, and you hear this tick, 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 and they go, and they grab whatever it is, moss or something, and you from the particular sound you can work out what it is, which particular species it is, short tail, long tail. Banding, this is probably the arc. Yeah, will be actually. We banned it in the arc near Pukekohe, Wellsford, as I mentioned, up at just east of Wellsford, Parakai. Any of you are welcome to come along and give a hand. Got kids or grandkids, great, because we need kids or what do they call those things? The Peter Jackson film Hobbits. We need things about that big to run under the cage and catch all the ducks for it. So people go, oh, can I bring my kids? Absolutely. I think about there, our best catch there might have been 800 in a weekend or something like that.
They're mostly mallard.
All mallard. Oh, nearly all mallard. There are a few.
One
Yeah,
for the
except this Scobie. There's a pheasant in there somewhere. Because we have a gentleman from Australia that said, oh, what about that? Yeah. And one of those pheasant breeding outfits, they've taken all these ponds that have been drained, well, very large, well, small lakes basically, being drained. I've gone back and looked at the 1940s, 1950s aerial photographs. They were drained way back then. In fact, looking at the sort of drains, it looks to me like someone's done it with a spade rather than a digger of any kind. And they've gone back and reflooded them and re-established them, and they wanted 20 breeding grey ducks to put in a breeding program to release out onto the lakes. They've got no intention of shooting them. Nobody shoots ducks in those places. It's just that's one of the assets, and environmentally minded, it's one of the things they want to do. I think it's fantastic. There we go. We've caught a brown. This is Prof. James Russell. You might know. He's probably banded with brown teal, I would say. We get the odd brown teal in our traps. Very occasionally shoveler. Every so often we get grey teal. I think the grey teal probably intimidated away a bit. And the other thing is the tunnels are high enough that when a mallard goes through this funnel tunnel and it looks out, it goes, how do I get out? How do I get out? Teal goes that way. So, grey teal, banded, I catch them in the nest boxes. I presume they're all female. I haven't really checked. Not that easy to check.
Has it been played around? Not that breeding time, it's just amazing.
Yeah, no, and the British teal, I think that's why they call it a teal. The British one's very similar. I just sneak up in a boat with the motor on, or just using an oar, get up as quietly as I can, hand over the entrance, lift the lid, reach in, grab them, ban them, weigh them, and if you come back an hour later, they're on the nest again. I've never known any eggs to spoil or go cold because I caught them and banded them. If that was the case, I just would have to find another way of doing it. They were part of the habitat stamp for that 2003. There we go. There's some of our volunteers down at the Pocono site.
And I say that one of our committee members, Chris Bingley,
Rings a bell? Yes, I know.
He's put up hundreds
Yes.
of the nests, and he's been doing it for years.
Okay.
He's not here tonight.
No. Just, the only thing I watch is brown teal are very antagonistic and they'll kill grey teals. So if you have a lake, it's fine. If you have a little pond, you want to avoid putting them together. The brown teal very territorial. So we've been doing this since about 1974, I think. Put over 2,000 of these boxes out. Ducks Unlimited and Fishing Game. And yeah, the idea was the population at one stage there, well, I don't know if I've got that picture. About in the 1940s, I found the first actual nest in New Zealand. There were extremely few in the country up to that point. They're an Australian bird. There's 1.1 million of them over there. They're actually a game bird over in Australia. And we're putting it, they figured that an absence of nest cavities might be one of the limiting factors. So they put up these nest boxes. Now I can tell you they'll use them 2 or 3 times a year each, to the point where they actually compete with each other. The you know, they end up what they call dump nests. We won't get into all that, but extremely popular was the birds. There we go. There's the green flash.
We put a whole lot with this on Matuki Reserve, which is
Okay.
across the reserve.
Yes.
And we, some that had botulism
Oh.
released there, but I never took to these at all. The only things that got to those was swallows make nests. But now we've got brown teal. So
Were they over with the post that supported this? Was it over land or over water?
underwater.
Okay. Okay.
They didn't do well in the way of taproot. Wetland,
Yeah.
brown teal.
Hey,
Really cute little things.
that's one of the problems with flooding. And I went out after a flood and I think there's 56 eggs there. And intriguingly, there was a stoat running off with them. I had my dog with me, so it was quite a the stoat's bloody cunning. I tell you what, they're leaving little back trails and things that goes through a campus bush and out the other side to try and lose the dog. And the dog was taking 10 minutes to figure out what happened to my stoat, you know. They're cunning things, I tell you. Got away in the end. Here we go, that's one of the teal. As I say, with a dump nest, you end up with 20 eggs, with 2 birds, sometimes 3 birds are laying in one nest. There'll be the one whose territory it is, and then there's a couple others who are freeloading. And what happens is, because they're only a tiny little bird, they can't cover all 20 eggs. So when birds are warming up their eggs, they take the ones on the outside of the core and bring them into the middle to warm them up. And the ones in the middle, they push them out to try and make sure that they all get about the same amount of heat. They all develop and hatch at the same time. So when you get 20, because they're pushing them in and out and they can't cover them all, they all die. Or only a handful survive if they do. So what you do, if you get 20 in a box, you take 10 away, catch them under a bantam. We don't do this all the time, it's just more of a hobby than anything else. When you go back, she's hatched out all 10 of hers, because 10 she can manage, right? She can't count, she can't go, oh, sure, there was 20 here. And we end up with this little ducklings like that. I think he's got his egg too, so he can't be very old.
So do you put the ducklings back?
There we go. So it might be a picture. Let's see if it comes up. I'm not sure what I took in the end. There we go. There's the egg and the yarrow. I only do that for 3 days. If you feed them after that, they won't eat anything else. But what I do is I put the mash underneath, and with ducks you can't use. There's ducks, dogs, and horses can't eat. There's a anthelmintic or something rather, and coccidiostat, I think it is. You've got to be very careful what you feed them. But anyway, you put the mash underneath the egg. So by day 3, they're eating some of the mash anyway. So when you take the egg away, like when I say take it away, you're feeding it to them fresh 3 times a day for 3 days. But after that, they're just getting the mash. And there's a brown tail that had botulism, and we just put a new band on it. That's Silk and Zoo, rehabilitated that one. That would have come from Omaha and from the dock. Dock thing that's up there. Botulism, hundreds and hundreds of birds dying of botulism. This is one of our wetlands, the Fox wetland. So I recorded, one dead mallard, one live mallard, grey duck, dead swan, so on and so forth, trying to make some sense of it all. What happened there was the amount of crap that's coming down the Whangareta River basically robbed all the oxygen. So you have a situation where you have some high water, kills off all the vegetation rots and dies. So then you've got a crash of the oxygen. It's exacerbated by all the pollution coming down there. I lifted up an eel's nets. Every eel in the nets were dead. He obviously hadn't come back to clear his nets. Which is part of the problem, because botulism needs a protein. So it's not so much the low oxygen as when the insects and things that are living there, when they die, because they've got no oxygen to breathe, then the birds go, oh, look at this free food. And they eat this protein source. Next thing you know, they die. They get flyborne. The other ducks come along and eat the flyborne ones. And so it becomes a exponential, from 2 or 3 or 6. One year I went there and I went, miles and miles and miles up this way, miles way up the Whangarino and the Maramara. We found about 2 dead birds. Yeah. Here's some of the ones that Bird Rescue or Bird Care had rehabilitated, and they've been released onto the den block and all having a good splash back into the habitat. So trick is don't take them back to where they got sick, because it might still be infectious. Here's some of the ones that I rescued one night. The mallard, that's a teal, that's a shoveler, a couple of swan. It's not, I think there's a grey duck or 2 in there. Yeah, so we've rescued royal spoonbills. Managed to save a couple of those. They're in Te Araha on a wetland we have there. There's a chap who does this sort of work near Taupiri. Dead brown teal, and that's near Omaha. These are some I've released on the wetland out past my Tuku link. So there's a shoveler, I think there's a shoveler, and these 3 I think are grey ducks. So they'll be happier there, safer there. Habitat work, we raise money from all sorts of sources to pay for habitat work. This is some of the wetland work we've done ourselves. I think we spent well over $1 million down there. We went to get a grant, I think from the Ministry for the Environment. We said, look, we don't want to restore an acre here and an acre here. We want to do a huge project, you know. So they went, okay, we'll buy into that. That's only part of it. It's huge. Up to that point, it was just solid willow. It was just rubbish. You know, there's practically nothing lived there of any consequence. Sometimes habitat work, you have to get out there with diggers. It's Neil Rankin, our guy, busy getting rid of a whole lot of glyceria, restoring these old places and spraying all the pampas. One of my jobs, spraying more pampas. One point there, we introduced this thing called a shiny beetle. And let me see, so that's, I think they had 40 or so, they're letting go to try and eat their trade scantia. We also had a thing called a smut fungus, and they were busy releasing all these things and doing their transects and driving in little pegs, and measuring their half meters and recording what they saw. They needn't have bothered. That's how bad it was under where the sheds rest, with all the guano coming down. But wait till you see the next picture. So remember that? There it is now. So the smut fungus and the beetle, shiny beetle. It's called that because the Latin name is just unpronounceable. Something like that.
What is that? There's 3 different species.
That's right.
That attack different kinds.
We released one, but I think another one arrived from another release site. You know. Oh, actually, let me just go back to that. There are short, I think it's short tailbacks in the nearby stream, hawking for moss and things. But now they can actually get down onto the valley floor, and you know, whereas there's no way they're going to get down to the valley floor there. So that might have helped them.
Was the dog all right? Because dogs are...
Yeah, they don't like it, do they?
It's bad.
Yeah, some dogs. If you get the sort of dog that gets rashes and things on its tummy from paspalin and that type of thing, don't take it anywhere near trade scantia. My present one, which is the same breed as this, you could roll in it, be no problem. but other ones, yeah, you're off to the vet to get some sort of. You can see there we got yellow flag. I had to get in with my truck and spray all of that, pampas, etc. The level of water has dropped out of this wetland. We had to get a weir to put it back. What we found is this weir is a metre tall, and the whitebait on the other side can't quite make a metre. They get about 980 bill, and then they drop. They're like salmon. They're trying to jump up it. Anyway, we got a whole lot of rocks and put it on the other side, so then they could swim amongst the rocks and climb up them and get in the little eddies behind them and get over the top. And that stream went from an extremely degraded stream, was only a few koi carp, to now it would have like 1,000 mullet in it. It would have big schools of whitebait. There we go, duck banding, we started
Where was
back in.
Where was this?
That was, the Parker Lane down halfway between Pukekohe and Waikato.
Is it next to Waikato River?
Yes, correct.
Down on the map.
Oh, duck banding, I think my photos might be a bit out of sequence here. It's Andrew Kirk from Lawson came down to help us. As I say, you're welcome to do exactly that. We'll teach you how to band. Or if you don't want to band, there's Auckland Zoo staff helping us. Doc come along, university come along. We taught so many people how to band.
How long ago was that from?
Oh,
I recognise it. TV show.
7 or 8 years maybe, something like that, maybe. No, originally states weasels and ferrets were protected. In actual fact, I wonder if the next year they were protected up until I think it's 1936. And this chap here is Bob Semple, who was the Minister of Internal Affairs at the time. These are two of his Labour Party colleagues out hunting. Honourable Webb and Semple, and this is Perry, Bill Perry. Anyway, he said enough is enough. No more protection for states and weasels up to that. And Fish and Game immediately, immediately offered a bounty. If anyone could bring in a tower, give them a bounty. And the minister, the previous minister, not him, but the previous minister said, you don't stop that sort of rubbish, I'll put the protection back on them again. It's like, it's too late now, the cat was out of the bag. It's the only good stuff. There's one climbing into a grey tail nest box.
You get there.
So that's the swan.
Yes, correct. And I couldn't trap it all. I did have some traps down there, actually, some automatic traps, but I figured they were probably living in Toi Toi, so I sprayed out all the Toi Toi in the area to hopefully get rid of the home and at least dissuade them. If you don't know the difference, the stoat has a black tip tail. This is the weasels, you know how it goes. This weasel is weaselly defined, but the stoat is totally different. And the female weasel is about half the size of the male one. So we encourage people by finding money to buy the traps, teaching them how to use it, getting experts to come in and show them the best part. Lately, we've got communication devices that will send you a text, or send you an email when you've caught something. That's the weasel, actually. He swam out. Little so. I had the Botanical Society come out to one of our properties to have their field day out there, and they did a summary of all the trees and plants and things that were there, which was absolutely.
It's Jeff Davidson.
Oh,
Yes.
very likely people we know. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Having their lunch. And I know you and Cameron was amongst them. Oh, game ranging, we do law enforcement, so we go and check, but make sure all the hunters have got their license, B, they're doing all the right things, they haven't got more than the limit and so on. I had a brilliant one where we caught some guys, and the boss wanted to, this behaviour. They'd shot far too many, and the boss wanted to publish the pictures. And I'm like, Doug, you can't do that. You need a court order to do that. They could sue you or something or other. And so what he did, there was a picture of the two guys and their dog. So he blacked out the eyes of this guy, blacked out the eyes of this guy, and he blacked out the eyes of the dog. Yeah, some more people getting checked. And it was up in Waikato. This chap here, he owns a farm up near Wellsford. Kaiwaka, to the west of Kaiwaka. He's got a huge pond in his place. And what happened, railway came in and said, we want to build a bridge and build our railway across your thing. And he said, okay, but I don't want the culvert down here. I want the culvert up here, so it makes a lake. And stunning wetland as a consequence. And trees, I think we used to give away about 10,000 trees a year to people doing habitat projects. This is the tandem trailer that I've hired. They're all in the back of the truck and the tray. And there's just enough room for me because there's trees galore everywhere. And some of them even got planted up at Tiarai. I'll think of the name of the person. This is the final photo, but I switched my, I can see this one of the trees we imported from America. It has a little fruit that ducks like to eat called tupelo, Nis aquatica. And you can see it's actually growing in standing water year round. Now, how many trees do that? Well, that would be about it. Anyway, folks, that's the talk. Any quick questions? You're welcome to ask me some afterwards if you think of them afterwards.